All right, welcome back. We're now going to shift gears into a conversation about the vision, um, the strategy, the plan, which is very much in formation, and therefore I invite all of you to contribute to it. Even if you disagree with something I'm proposing, disagree, no problem. Let's talk about it in the loving, compassionate, caring way that characterizes the block party. Sound good? All righty. I'm going to screen share in a moment, and I'll invite everyone to just jump in because when I'm screen sharing, presenting stuff, I can't see when hands go up or anything like that. So feel free to just jump in. And before I screen share, let me just set a little context for it. The big idea here is that we can build out a taxonomy of topics, a topic map, which I'll show in a minute. We can build out a topic map that spans all the relevant topics of problems, of solutions, of root causes, of collective superintelligence, and all other categories of topics that are relevant to the big picture of how do we solve our problems and save life on Earth, right? How do we get out of the death spiral that we're in is how I'd frame it. And so I'm going to show for starters, a single screen, which is kind of my starter map for, this map of topics. And then I'll talk through from there. And like I said, please don't hesitate to just jump in and start talking, even if I'm talking. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. So here is this starter map of topics. The first thing I want to point out is that we have, wait a second here. Oh, I got to, sorry, let's see here. Stop sharing for a second. Okay, everything's good. All right, back to sharing. Okay, so the first thing I want to point out about on this map of topics is the left-hand column, and these are the categories of topics. So everything to the right of root causes here at the bottom, these are all root causes. Everything to the right of chronic world problems, these are examples of chronic world problems. Not just examples, but some of the really big ones, and so on. And so let's still focusing on the left-hand column, I just want to give the overall framing, and then we can dig into all the specific topics here. We have root causes of our problems. We have chronic world problems that we've had for decades or longer. We have acute world problems, which are in our face right now and literally taking us down if we don't solve them. Existential acute problems, and we have a number of them. Big problems call for big solutions. I call them mega solutions at planetary scale, and I've listed them here on some of the big ones here on the right. And then at the very top, the goose that's laying the golden eggs, that's what I call meta solution. And what I literally mean by that is that thing which generates solutions. So if we think of each solution as being represented by a golden egg, collective superintelligence, the meta solution, is the goose which lays the golden eggs, the goose which generates the solutions. And that is collective superintelligence consisting of all of us. Okay? Does anyone have any questions or comments about this overall structure as depicted by the left-hand column here before we go into the details? All righty. So let's start with root causes of our problems and kind of work our way up. And then we can then also take the top-down approach subsequently and look at collective superintelligence and the solutions to those problems it can generate. So we have root causes. You know, why are we so screwed up? Why has humanity become so destructive, so misguided, so violent, and so seemingly incapable? Seemingly, although that's changing quickly now that we're all getting more and more dialed in and communicating more and more. How did we get so screwed up? Well, we could look at our evolutionary history for pieces of the answer. We can look at totalitarian agriculture as coined by Daniel Quinn, author of Ishmael and the Story of B back in the 90s, which really nailed it. It really tells the story of how we went from essentially being a part of nature to destroying nature so that we could produce massive amounts of food for ourselves, thus supporting overpopulation. And coincident with the rise of totalitarian agriculture came our experience of being separate from nature. And nature is something we can dominate, destroy, chop down, kill in order to get what we think we want. And, you know, what do we want? And then I put this kind of catch-all category here of dark forces and shadow. Anyway, but this is just the beginning of a list of root causes. And so any comments on root causes before we move up the chain? All right. So anyway, from this exotic mix of root causes, we got, as we just mentioned, overpopulation is one major problem. And that has become a really vicious cycle because as more and more people appear, then there's more and more demand for food, both plant and animal food. And as Sailesh showed on the last segment, just unimaginably large impact on the natural world. And then again, from overpopulation, from our perceiving ourselves as separate from nature and separate from each other, and all people fundamentally in competition with each other, out of this has emerged a politics, an economics, an entire set of living arrangements. This is basically humanity adapting to a really messed up kind of rule set, which can be found down here in the root causes. And part of that adaptation is organized crime. People feeling so oppressed, having such an experience of oppression that they choose to work outside of the systems that are oppressing them, big surprise there, and create their own system. And I would include animal agriculture as part of organized crime. There's all different kinds of organized crime. We were talking a bit ago about the modern medical establishment and its support of the pharmaceutical industry and whatnot, and as well as their support of non-vegan foods. And I made the comparison that they really are a form of organized crime. The animal agriculture industry certainly is, but the medical industry that supports it is also a part of the organized crime against Mother Earth and our brother and sister species. So moving on, and please comment, jump in and comment if any questions. So moving on from these chronic world problems, we have the acute world problems of hunger and extreme poverty, destruction of the biosphere and extinction of species. We're currently in the midst of the 6th mass extinction, the coronavirus, of course, planetary overheating, and economic collapse. And there's two main reasons why economic collapse is such a big existential threat. One is the loss of global dimming, which is relevant to the solution solar radiation management. Solar radiation management can solve the loss of global dimming, and essentially any degree of planetary overheating can be addressed by solar radiation management if we do it in time. But doing solar radiation management is a massive industrial and logistical undertaking, which needs a healthy global economy in order to support it. So those are the reasons why economic collapse is such an existential threat. Otherwise, it wouldn't have made the list. So big problems call for big solutions. Everything from economic and political transformation to veganism, a new story for humanity. This is arguably the foundation of our mega solutions. Because right now, our old story simply doesn't make sense. And we need a new story that's supportive of life rather than supportive of dominion, destruction, competition, and violence. We need mega solutions to eradicate the coronavirus, between vaccines and policies and standards to stop the spread, etc. This is a major solution area. And then finally, solar radiation management, which Dr. Yetao is currently discussing with Sailesh. And so these are among the mega solutions, and there are many, many others, but this is just kind of an initial mapping. Welcome, Dharmendra. I'm currently on screen share here, just finishing up an overview of this slide. So to generate all these mega solutions, we have the grand meta solution of collective superintelligence. And by that, I simply mean a meta solution is that which generates solutions. Just like, so if golden eggs are our goal, then this goose is a meta golden egg. It generates golden eggs. So we need something to generate all these mega solutions so that we can solve our problems and stop the sixth mass extinction and stop planetary overheating and our other problems. And this gets us in, this is the realm of collective superintelligence. An intelligence so powerful that it can generate and implement these massive solutions in the face of whatever we may be faced with. Myriad forms of resistance, challenges, inertia, attachment to the status quo, etc. And solar radiation management is a perfect example of the need for collective superintelligence. Solar radiation management on its own, the concept is not that hard, and even the technologies for reflecting sunlight back into space are not that hard. Yes, there have been some really stupid ideas as to how to do SRM, but there have also been some really great ones, such as Dr. Yetao of Harvard is presenting right now. But so that's not our present challenge. Now that great ideas have been hatched for how to do it, our challenge is, how do we implement those ideas? How do we rally humanity together to A, take this seriously, and B, commit the resources to doing it, to save all of our lives? So we need collective superintelligence to come up with, again, not just the engineering solutions, but the financial solutions, the political solutions, the cultural solutions, the mass media solutions, the social media solutions, the religious solutions. How do we get the big religions on board? And so on and so on and so on. How do we get it done? And if you consider all of our problems, the whole corpus, the diversity of them, and all of the solutions and the integration of the solutions with each other, so that we really talk in terms of one giant holistic solution, to design that and to design the mechanisms to get it all implemented, including changing people's minds. All of that screams for superintelligence. What kind of superintelligence? Well, we basically have two options: artificial superintelligence, or strong AI, and collective humans superintelligence, supported by AI and myriad other technologies. But the heart of human collective superintelligence is the human intellect itself and our collective intellect. So with that brief introduction, I'm going to stop screen sharing. And Dharmendra, great to see you, brother. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you.
Had a very interesting week. I'll just share real quick since I haven't connected yet this week.
Yeah.
Tuesday, the normal day of our usual meeting, my daughter's fiance passed away from the coronavirus. So I was kind of involved in some other kind of work, bardo work, I guess you could call it. That's where I was. But I'm glad I could come and join you guys today. So hello.
I'm so sorry to hear that, Dharmendra, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, very sorry to hear that, Dharmendra. That's terrible, terrible news, and my condolences to you and the family extended.
I guess I just wanted to share that to kind of let everybody know that the coronavirus is very real, and that it does what it does. And anyway, I'm of two sides of it, because on the one hand, I really feel for my daughter, because she's suffering. She really was deeply in love with this guy. But on the other hand, I've always been taught in my what I've learned in my life, throughout my life, is to celebrate somebody's passing. So there's both of those there. There's holding a big space for her in my heart, and just being available. And at the same time, also, just having a new response to when people leave, even if there is an authentic grieving or sadness, but there's also a celebrativeness in the fact that everybody, whenever they leave, it is a moment to celebrate, because death is the culmination. It's the, everything that's happened in that life all comes together in that moment. So I think that one of the nicest things we can do for a soul who's passed from here is to acknowledge that with a celebrativeness too. So that when they leave, there's not just the sense of loss, but there's also the sense of a great gain. At least in their experience, there's going to be a great gain, because they're no longer limited to a physical form, and so they have a much greater reach with their consciousness now, and hopefully, that's a good thing. So for me, the celebration is. But I do appreciate whatever sentiment is there, because I know that's how we traditionally acknowledge somebody's passing. But I also just want to say that celebration is also possible. Burn a candle, do a meditation, have a dance, a last dance for the person, whatever. So I just share that, because I always like to bring something, not just say, bring something to this space. So celebration is a beautiful thing you can do. It's an option in the midst of losing somebody in this world.
Beautiful. Thank you, Dharmendra. And in that spirit, would you like to share with us anything about your son-in-law?
Well, it was. What can I say? Just that it really. What my daughter said is, he really helped her to learn to love herself. So that to me is, if you can get that out of a relationship with somebody, I can't imagine anything better than that. And it's my, I guess I'll call it belief, even though there's more to it than that. If the connection is deep, everybody will carry on past this place. Obviously, there's a lot we don't get to know being still here in this world, because it would probably just create more chaos than good if we knew too much about what happens after leaving here. But I mean, if you put in the time and the energy and spend what it takes to contemplate who you are and what you're doing here, and that kind of stuff, certain surprises, I guess, and unexpected things open up, and you start to see things maybe that not everybody's given to see. It does take a certain kind of preparedness to encounter things that are not physical, but it is possible. And so while in the first day of the leaving, I spoke to my daughter and just shared with her some things, because I was in touch with him, because he kept bugging me to tell her that he was really in a good space. And so I shared some things with her about that are very personal to her own journey that can't really be generalized. But all I can say is that I think it helped her to feel a little more relieved about that he wasn't suffering anymore, that he was in peace. Because once the transition is made, it's you are in peace. There's no more. The space beyond this space is no more. Full.
Is it just Armendra who's breaking up? James, can you hear me okay?
What you may be, but if you're a decent person, it's you come to a place of peacefulness. So that's all. I mean, there's really not a whole lot more to say. I mean, everybody's going to have their own experience of when people pass. Mine is that there's a continuity, and for me, just the body's no longer present, but the spirit and the soul are still present. I won't say that it's necessarily a great thing to be able to have contact with that, but it is certain psychics have that kind of ability, but it's because of an imbalance, not because they've done a lot of soul searching. If you can open that space through a lot of soul searching, it is kind of nice, because you can give people some sense of peace of mind when somebody passes, that things are well, that things are okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say, except the coronavirus is real, and it's going to come into all of our personal lives somewhere at some point, or if not this one, then the next one, because I don't see humanity quitting eating animals too soon. But that is there's a beautiful video out by, I think the guy's name is Dr. Greger, who talks about the history of humanity in terms of the domestication and husbandry of animals, and that's when major diseases started about 10,000 years ago. It's probably longer than that, but that's when it started. Humanity started to have pandemics and stuff because of treating animals like commodities instead of like living beings, and then doing all the things that they do with them as a result of that. So as long as humanity continues to eat animals and buy products and fund corporations that exploit animals for whatever reason, there's going to be more. The pandemics are going to get worse, not better. Sad to say, but that's just anybody who's tuning into all of this is pretty much the patterns are there. So I don't know. That's a lot of my. Thanks for letting me share a little bit. It gave me an opportunity to point out the thing about not just the personal grieving that's going on with my daughter, but the fact that it's proliferating and being caused, and it wasn't by bats, it was by swine flu. That what they're finding out, it was a swine flu that they've over there in China, and they're having to euthanize millions and millions of pigs because of it. And but they, as always, they hide the real reasons, and because if they don't want to panic people, they want them to think it's some unusual, very out of the way, not usual, somebody ate a real weird bat. No, it's swine flu. It's what everybody's eating. So just some things to hopefully bring some awareness to, this coronavirus, which is still pretty central to all of our lives right now. But I hope everybody here, and I hope everybody that you guys know is healthy and okay, or at least if they're getting it, it's mild. That's all I'll say right now on all that. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Dharmendra. Thank you. And thank you for being here, brother. You know, all this just makes me stop and just ask, what's keeping us from coming together and finally putting these problems to bed? You know, why do we keep perpetuating? I mean, I have my own thoughts. In fact, the slide I was just sharing, looks at root causes and whatnot. Here, I'll share it again. And it really speaks for itself, this slide. Again, the left-hand column is like the categories of the items to the right of it. And so if we look at root causes of our problems, and then look at all of our problems as a whole, and think of the corpus of solutions that would be required. Big problems call for big solutions, and we have mega problems, some of which are very tiny, which call for big, big solutions. And the imperative for all of these huge solutions in a very tight time frame, because we're now losing global dimming in a big way, which is only accelerating the planetary overheating. So we have a degree of urgency that I can't find the words for. But suffice it to say, we need to come up with basically the biggest set of solutions, the most transformational set of solutions in history. And we need to come up with all of them very, very quickly. And not just the idea of a solution. Like, oh, I've got it. Let's reflect sunlight back into space. That's just the seed of the solution. It's the actual implementation that matters. So we need to come up with the solutions and come up with all of the enabling solutions that will enable them to be fully implemented. So at this point, I'd like to leave the slide up for a minute or a few, and just ask for folks to comment. Any questions, any comments on what you're seeing here? Is there anything that particularly calls out to you? And actually, let me just further add, the whole point of this is so that we have conversations both about these topics, as well as conversations kind of in between topics that touch on multiple topics. So for example, I'm moving my mouse around these 4 solutions in the second and third row: triple C, veganism, hunger, and extinction, and or destruction of the biosphere and extinction. And there is a conversation that we've started a couple of weeks ago about, hey, what if we were to organize a program for the delivery of vegan food to all people around the world, ending hunger, improving nutrition, and stopping the destruction of animals, the killing of animals. And it could be funded by a mechanism such as CCC, an economic mechanism. That's an example of a conversation that sits essentially right in the middle of these four topics. So the idea of this map is that these topics here are all like pillar topics, right? And that there are myriad other topics in between and related to these pillar topics. Whoops, okay. Sorry, these are other slides. Okay, I'm gonna stop screen sharing, so I can check in with everybody. And got a question from Maida. What's Michael gonna be talking about at 2 p.m.? He'll be talking about a new story for humanity. It'll be an extension and continuation of the series that he started some weeks ago. Michael was gone for a couple of weeks, but now he's back. So he'll be here in 15 minutes. Any questions or comments about, hey, Jackie?
I have a question.
Yeah.
On your slide, where would you say racism and classism go?
Yeah, very good. Let me go back to that. And in fact, there are some other slides or some other things, because as soon as I put together kind of like this first sort of, these were the ones that were just jumping out at me, I said, wait a second, we're missing some here. We're missing a mega solution in the realm of reconciliation, healing, and justice, right? Another around the divine feminine. And then there are these other four that came out of Sailesh's presentation. And then I also put in a chronic world problem of colonialism, right, which cuts across racism, classism, etc. And in fact, I could put here, and then also, Jackie, there's a couple other places where it fits as well, which is our entire set of living arrangements, right? Which are inherently racist. Our economics, which are inherently racist. Politics, which is racist. Organized crime, which is racist. And food distribution, likewise. So it kind of cuts across all. And the thing is, this is an art, not a science, of coming up with the right mix of these sort of pillar topics. And this for me constitutes really creating a complete topo map of all of the topics that are relevant, so that we can use these to build off of, right? And create conversations that span multiple topics. But let's not stop developing this list until it's complete. And so, Jackie, I would ask you to either, think about it now and comment, or we can talk about it later, or even at a future meeting. But there's a lot that I'm kind of working on adding to this slide, or having subsequent slides that just go deeper.
Yeah, I guess because I was thinking about where would it be under the chronic or the root causes. I mean, because like you said, you can see how it's the construct of all these other manifestations, and how every conversation we have always winds up to being about that separation. So is it born of that separation? I like the term racism is not the son of race, but the father. So where do we put that in, and where do we address that as a root cause, or as one of the chronic manifestations of the root cause of separation? And I think with all of my work, everything winds up being right back to that. So I guess I struggle with where to address that, and if we don't address and acknowledge and bring awareness to how it underscores all of the work that we do, and all of those I guess those branches of that separation. I think we just have to call it out. And I think colonialism, I think again, is a manifestation of that mindset.
Totally, totally. I agree with you that separation is the root of it. We see ourselves as separate from nature, separate from each other. Oh, those people don't look like our people, therefore, there are natural enemies. I mean, separation actually goes beyond racism and sexism and everything else. It's people fundamentally in our system that we've been born into. People fundamentally see other people as their enemies, right? Because it's a zero-sum game. Each of us is trying to hoard more monopoly money than the others, and essentially put all the others out of business is the ultimate game of that goal of the ultimate goal of that game of monopoly. Here we are playing it in real life. Instead of monopoly money, it's US dollars. But the rules are fundamentally the same. Take what you can from whomever you can, including their own life, if it's an animal, right? Or another human being that you have a problem with, right? Or a whole race of human beings, right? As the case may be.
I think it's also that story that we've inherited, like that Darwinian story that nature is all about competition. And we see ourselves as nature, and that's, the defense. Nature's competition, but nature's cooperation. Nature cannot exist unless the whole is functioning and the whole is working. So instead of looking at nature as competition, to look at nature as we take only what we need, we give all that we can, and we're the best we can be. That story of who we are as nature tells a completely different story about that connectedness and that love. But we have to change, again, that story, that human story that we've been telling ourselves, that very Newtonian, very Darwinian story, and holding on to it, because that justifies all of the things that we do.
Yeah, in fact, that story of separation and of competition and that therefore, the way we're living is the right way to live. That is an idea virus, which is vastly more deadly than the coronavirus. It's killing off our brother and sister species at a rate of hundreds per day. And, overheating our planet exponentially, setting us on a course where all complex life will be exterminated in a relatively short period of time. So, for me, the real game, the only game in town at this point is developing our collective superintelligence, which spans so many different dimensions, not just, intelligence as narrowly defined. But developing our collective superintelligence first as a species, and then as we were discussing a couple days ago in our interview, that Sailesh was interviewing me and Nolan about collective intelligence, actually having trans-species communication. I mean, I talk with the crows every day, and I'm learning their language, and they're learning how to get more food out of me and whatnot. But, the point is, the collective intelligence doesn't have to start with human, and of course, doesn't have to stop with, and it extends to other animals, other species, spirits, the whole spiritual realm. Dharmendra, please comment on that whenever you're inspired to. But I mean, it is full spectrum collective superintelligence that we need.
Okay, I will. First thing I wanted to say, though, is as we're discussing all this, it's funny that the one, I guess, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I think we could collectively agree that the primary root cause of all the other causes is the fact that humanity is asleep and they have no idea what they're doing. And if the group consciousness of the world of humanity in its vast majority, like let's say at least 80%, right off the bat, is super hyper suggestible and influenced by every force out there, from the media to politics to the neighbors to the families to traditions to all these different things that set the pace for how we agree to live our life collectively. And then the way science, a lot of science frames things, which isn't necessarily like the way Sailesh, for instance, frames things, you know, then we've got a real situation on our hands where we have to realize that probably 80% of the planet, no matter what we do in the near future and maybe even in the distant future, is unless it can, what we do becomes part of the streaming of the mass media, in which case it's going to be a very different world, because we're going to have a certain tenacious influence in what's being, you know, spread out there as the truth. But unless before that, it's like, realistically, it seems we need to have a group of people like we're doing here, and then start interconnecting, like as a first real step, interconnecting groups like ours. And obviously through our butterfly friend, whose name I can't quite remember right now. You know who I'm talking about, the blonde who comes on and does all her, you know, and she's fabulous. And I've even seen her with Brett in a thing he's doing. What's her name?
Denise,
right. I just became friends with her on Facebook. But anyway, yeah. So, but I think that's a good lead, is that we can start interconnecting and start creating a stream of conscious conversation, which we've already started here, a collective stream of conscious conversations, where we can start to normalize all the things that right now for most of humanity are probably, you know, might as well be on planet Mars for the way the rest of the world lives and is going to continue living. And that just seems to be the nature of our planet. I mean, I've really spent decades looking at why can't people change if they're introduced to, well, number one is they're not introduced to it. Most of it's repressed by the media and everybody else. So a lot of this stuff doesn't get out there. What gets out there is ruled by the corporations and their ability to pay for $1 million, $10 million, even more dollar ads, you know, to keep everybody's attention fixated on what they want to keep our attention fixated on, and very little of this kind of real stuff can get through, you know. And if you look at it, just look at the daily set of shows and the people who get on the shows, the same old people discussing the same old things in the same old ways. And I guess it's just, it just satisfies a certain urge in people to continue to watch that kind of stuff. And it's not that there's anything wrong with things like that, you know, talk shows or whatever, but they keep people fixated at a certain level of consciousness. They're not going to go beyond or want to wake up. You really got to get a burr up your ass to want to wake up. And by a burr up your ass, I mean something that really hits you so hard, whether super positive or super negative, it shakes you out of your apathetic boredom, which is what we're experts at here in America. Apathetically bored. I don't give a crap about nothing, but as long as I get what I get, and I get it, and my family's okay, I don't really care about the rest of you. That's the honest truth for pretty much everybody. That's the 80% I'm talking about. That's not who we are. That's not what we're doing. And so it's like, it seems in order to really get something going, we have to strengthen that connection with other groups like this and start to make a serious network out of this, you know, build a network up into an empire of networks that are of this kind, you know, of the, I don't know. I've never really watched a Ted's talk, but I think he's probably on the right track, and the kind of stuff he pushes across, and obviously Sailesh and who he's connecting with, and, you know, various other groupings around of people that are, you know, considered the intelligentsia that people tend to listen to because they have degrees and, you know, they have all the things that make people go, okay, those are the kind of people I need to listen to. But we need to normalize that there are so many more other intelligent people like us who are right down here on ground level that may not necessarily have great degrees or anything, that are extremely intelligent and can present ideas that are transformational and share conversations that can get under people's skin in the right way, that can inspire and motivate them to do things differently and to live their life differently and to act differently. And that's just what I have on that. But also in terms of, you know, trans species, yeah, I mean, also we can go not just down into, and by down I don't mean anything disrespectful, but animals only have they have 15, where we go in dreaming, we are the same as animals. We have a 15, how to call it, codons that we rely on when we go into dreaming, and mammals have that access. They're the most advanced species of non-human. We have 64, so what I mean by down is just simpler. But we can also go up, and what I mean by up is more intelligent. We can also go up into higher forms of consciousness and actually learn to start connecting with that. And I hope more and more as we go on, I can open up that stuff, because that's beyond the shadow, gift, and siddha stuff. That's where you get into, that's like a whole other strata of, I mean, there's like 3 basic strata that, you can work on healing. First of all, that's really the first strata that anybody who's starting to get into these conversations has obviously done a lot of healing work on themselves. Or I don't think they have removed enough of the blinders that are put there in our aura through our conditioning of every different kind as we grow up, to even see what we're doing here, to even want to be attracted. And then the second level is obviously the shadow, gift, siddha stuff, which I'm obviously not the only one doing that. There are other people doing that even a lot more than I'm doing it. But something that I offer that's very unique is a third level of transformation, which is directly stepping into, and a lot of people will disagree with me on this, because they say if a man who's wise won't ever say he's wise. Well, I say this is the new man, and you've got to say that, or nobody's going to know. I mean, the time of the holy, humble, whatever teacher of the past is over. I disagree with that. I think we all need to stand up and own our wisdom, and stand in that place and share it. Because this is critical times. We need to break the old rules. We don't have time to just sit back and wait for people to figure out, wow, that guy's really cool, and he never talks about it. He must be really humble. But yeah, I mean, I could hear that, but that's again a fixated thing, that there's no law that says a guy who's awake will never say that about himself. What does that prove? I mean, to me, that's like, in a way, that might be counterproductive in certain situations. The guy might need to come in and say that to people, just because there might be people that respond to that and go, wait a minute, if he is, maybe I am too. Maybe I want to find out what that's about. Maybe I want to jump into that too. Because I think we need a serious amount of awake people right now. What my teacher used to call the 10,000 Buddhas. We need something like that. We need something on that level of, and I see Michael there, so I'll start chilling down in respect of Michael's what's happening. But we need something on the order of 10,000 Buddhas now to make an impact in the world. I mean, I don't see how else we're going to change it. So that, to me, what we're growing here is a very beautiful experiment in awakening. Behind everything else, I know everybody's clear that we're doing that too. It's just obvious, because everybody is awakening. And Michael's a great example of that right now, coming on, and I'll call him out on that and say definitely an awakened person that is beautiful to have in the space. I mean, wow, how lucky are we that we can, that we're starting to showcase people like that, and we're not afraid to say so. And so all I'm saying is, more and more of these kind of groups is our first step. We need to take our network to an empire level. An empire, not in the old sense of the term of owning, conquering, or whatever, but in the sense of clusters of networks, as Jamin always is talking about, the collective superintelligence, technologically speaking, that can hook us all up. So we can start having conversations like this with other groups like this, and start trans communicating across these different things. So if we can't break the barriers through our groups, first of all, how are we going to pretend to bring that to humanity and break it there? So anyway, thanks.
Beautiful. No, Dharmendra, absolutely beautiful. In fact, you've said so many great things that complement what I was just sharing, because here's kind of the big picture as I see it. Okay. Imagine a giant meadow with, millions of flowers popping up, and each of these flowers represents a conversation. So each of these flowers represents a transformational conversation. And we know we're not alone. We know transformational conversations are happening all over the meadow. But how do we connect? That's the question you posed. How do we connect? And Michael, welcome. Welcome, Michael. You popped off for a minute, and good to see you back. We're just wrapping up a conversation here, which might be a good lead in for what you're talking about. So what this represents, okay, and I'll put it back up on the screen. this represents, for me, a beginning of a map, of a topo map, a topic map, right? That we could potentially overlay on top of the meadow and say, look, let's simply identify which flowers are where on the map, which conversations are where, and let's model having conversations that are located on the map, and you know, model a network of conversations that we can start out small, but show the world, hey, this is a network of conversations on all these different topics and myriad topics in between and related to, et cetera. So this is just sort of a soup starter. But then based on this map, you know, show the concept of a network of conversations, which is supported by a topo map of topics, right? And the other elements of collective superintelligence that we've been talking about. So I'm basically suggesting that one way that we could do this is to basically start where we are, create this network of conversations, which we can actually do right here on the block party, even with 10 people, because we have one conversation on one topic, followed by another on another topic, followed by another on another topic, and so on. And save them as YouTube videos, which we do anyway, and voila. Now you've populated each topic with a recurring conversation. And we can just do it as a demonstration to the world, right? This is collective. This is the beginning of collective superintelligence. If you like it, join us, or at least come hang out in some of our meetings and talk about it with us. If you have things to contribute to it, great, come and contribute. If you see a better way of doing collective superintelligence to generate conversations, come tell us. Oh, this whole topic map idea is wrong. Okay, great. Let's upcycle it. What do you got? All right, but we got to figure this out. So I've been talking about collective superintelligence for quite some time, probably as long as each of you has known me, and years longer. Our idea now is that map that you're seeing, or you know what it'll evolve into, would be the homepage of Snack Bar, SNAC Bar, the social network of actual conversations. What we're having right here, this is an actual conversation, right? People talking crap or gossip or whatever, that's not an actual conversation. So we promote the category of actual conversations, right? And we're creating a network. So they come to the homepage of Snack Bar and say, okay, I heard about these actual conversations. What do you got? Well, here's a map of topics. What topics are you interested in? There's conversations happening on all of them, right? And here's another thing I'm thinking, okay? I'm just gonna plant a seed for you all. Oh, Michael Gaio is calling. Let me check in. Michael. Hey. Oh my goodness. Yeah. No, I got it. You had popped in a couple times. I just hit the button. I'm sorry I didn't see it the third time. But now you're in, and okay, cool. All right, sorry about that, Michael. Michael was in the waiting room for a couple of minutes there. But anyway, I was just, we were just wrapping up a conversation about Snack Bar. Let me just make a final point about that. Myra has her hand raised, and then we'll get start Michael's presentation. But imagine that we create. So raise your hand if you've heard of or seen the show Duck Dynasty. Duck Dynasty. Okay. Anyway, it's one of those reality TV shows. It was literally the most popular reality TV show on television for I don't know how long, how many seasons or whatever. But you know, it's basically a bunch of hicks down in Louisiana who hunt ducks, and it's all about their lives and everything like that. Well, imagine that we created the Duck Dynasty of global transformation. Here we are, you know, a bunch of normal people, but instead of shooting at sentient ducks were shooting at the world's problems. And instead of shotguns, we're using conversation. Say it, don't spray it. Anyway, I'll leave us all on that thought. James, thanks for the thumbs up. Myra has her hand up, and then it'll be time for Michael Gaio.
Hi, Jamin. Yeah, before we start with Michael Gaio, I just wanted to mention that a couple of times I tried to log in before I was actually accepted. I just want to make sure that this doesn't happen to other people like Michael and myself and maybe others, where we've stayed there for quite a while and then I get up because it says that it's waiting to be approved to be accepted. Just wanted to make sure that it doesn't happen to other people because
It happened to me too. Happened to me too. This time joining, I waited 10 minutes. Kind of
yeah.
bummer.
I am so sorry. I am so sorry to everyone. Let me check in with Michael Gaio because it looked like it happened to him most recently. So Michael, in my experience, you entered twice before this current session.
Yeah.
And then you dropped out. I don't know if you had.
I entered twice because I entered the first time and my audio wasn't working. I couldn't hear anyone, so I had to log out. I quit. Had to update Zoom.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And the third time, I just waited at the screen that says the host will let you in, and I waited and waited and waited. Then I called you.
Right. Okay.
I'm not sure how that approval process is working, but
yeah. Okay, so let me tell you how it works on my end. Is whenever someone enters the waiting room, I see a thing flash at the bottom of the screen where it says participants, and I'm able to click a button that says accept to let them in. Okay. So the first two times, was your wait relatively brief, Michael?
Very brief.
Very brief. Okay, yeah, that's because I saw it flash. Boom, let him in. Great. Dharmendra, I think I was screen sharing when you first entered, so that might have made it so that I couldn't see. But anyway, I'm just going to be hyper vigilant, and like the screen didn't even flash the last time that you joined in, Michael. So I'm just going to be hyper vigilant and just keep tabs on it. So
yeah. Also, by the way, more on this topic, the Zoom link on the front page of the Radish website is incorrect.
Oh my goodness! All right, let me get right on that. Tell Nolan that right away. Thank you for that. I'm just going to voice dictate this. I'll be right back. Okay, got the message to Nolan. Thanks for that, Michael.
Yeah.
All righty. Okay. Well, again, my apologies to everyone, and I will be hyper vigilant on the waiting room side. And with that, if there's nothing more to say about that, welcome, Michael. And let me start a new recording.